In this section, let's talk about the challenges of the SQL language itself and how it can be difficult to write code. Now, in most computer languages, if we want to write code, we use a certain syntax, we have a certain structure with grammar and braces and parentheses and those kinds of things, and the structure remains the same. Every time I compile the code, the structure is the same. I may add things or take them away, but physically and syntactically, everything is the same. It's not always easy in the SQL language, and it's one of the reasons I think SQL is somewhat broken and it makes development and deployment more difficult. Let's look at a stored procedure. In this particular code, I can create a stored procedure. I have a structure with begin and end and return and various other constructs that are part of my language. But if I want to change this code, if I want to add a parameter to this code and then use it, I actually can do that, but not only do I have to add the parameter and add changes to the code further down, but I have to change from a create procedure to an alter procedure, which means that how and where I write this code depends on when I'm deploying it. The create procedure syntax isn't valid after the object exists. And if I haven't built the object, the alter procedure status is not correct, which means that I have different code at different points in time, which is confusing and difficult. Now in SQL Server 2016 and some other platforms, I have the create or alter syntax, or create if exists syntax, or drop if exists syntax, which makes things a little bit easier. At some point, this code will be standard, and we'll have the ability to write the same code at any point in time when we're working with our code objects like views, stored procedures, functions, etc. Tables, however, are still different. Let's look at a very simple example. Here I've got create table code, and I'm going to create a very small table. Now if I decide I want to add a column to this table because I've forgotten something or my requirements have changed, I completely change my syntax. Not only do I go from create table to alter table, but I don't include the rest of that code that was there before. I now just have an add. I give various items that are part of that new code, but this looks completely different than the other code. And I have no idea what the full structure of the table looks like if I view this code, but this is what I would have to deploy to make a change later on. If I want to change one of the existing items, it's still further different. I use alter table, alter column syntax now, or in this case, I'm lengthening the size of the field. And I still have to include the data type and the null or not null settings and other items inside of my code whenever I need to do this. So the SQL language means that I not only care about what changes I'm making, what logical differences, but I care about when they're happening. In many other languages, this isn't the case. If you're working in NoSQL databases, I'm using JavaScript or I'm using Python or something else. For those languages, typically I use the same syntax all the time, which makes deployment a little bit easier. SQL and relational databases, it's a little bit harder. That's the first challenge we've got to cover. We've got many more to look at.